Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the price of LTCN BCHG and the other trusts and how they just seem to keep on going down. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so I don't show you guys this every day, but here is the portfolio. As you guys can see, nothing has changed. We still have the exact same number of shares we had before at the exact same price, exact same positions, exact same amount of cash. It's all the same. Okay, just because the markets are pulling back does not mean that we are selling. What we're currently doing right now actually is we are not buying any crypto or anything crypto related. And we are also we are buying dividend paying stocks, but very small amounts every day, because again, this market volatility is wild. Um, what we saw recently was considered to be some kind of crazy flash crash, and the last time we saw this was during 2020, and the market dropped 40% in 2 months. So we're just kind of taking a seat back right now and kind of watching to see how this develops before we make any and clear some other things up before we decide to make any big moves. So you guys can also see on the portfolio here, we are down a massive 9% on the day. Pretty crazy. So once again, I will say that I do think that the markets are oversold. I think that they're oversold in general. We're going to go over a macro video here soon within the next week. Again, I'm aware that we have not done that as of recently, but we've showed you guys. Well, I'm not going to show you in this video. I'll just, if there's anything to show, I'll post it on X for you guys. But basically, the point I want to make here is that a lot of stuff in the markets right now are oversold. Okay. My guess would be that a lot of retail traders are probably panic selling. Paper handsing is what they call it. Paper hands, diamond hands, paper hands in the crypto market. They're probably paper handsing right now and freaking out and panic selling out of their positions while the prices are going down. I mean, there's really only two ways to approach something like this when the markets are really selling off heavily. Well, three ways to approach something like this when the markets are selling off heavily. In my opinion, three strategies, just a quick rundown of what you can do. Okay, if you're already in a position, assuming you didn't put it all in at one level, again, that would be considered to be like some kind of breakout trade or swing trade or position trade. If you were just DCAing in and you had a modest amount in, you could always just DCA down as far down as it goes. Now, is there any guarantee that crypto is not going to go into a bear market? No. I'm not saying crypto is going into a bear market. Okay, please do not misunderstand me. I'm just saying that as of right now, there is a risk that Bitcoin could pull back more. Okay. Until we see the market recover, the risk is still there. The fear is still there. Again, I think the fear is kind of overblown, a little overinflated, if you ask me. And I think the markets are going to recover here pretty soon. I don't know how long it's going to take, maybe a couple of days or something. But as you guys can see, I mean, it's massively oversold on the RSI. So basically, you can just DCA down. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you could just sit on cash on the side and you could say, you know what, I'm not going to buy any of the trusts of any kind unless the RSI gets oversold on the daily or the weekly time frame. Okay. Well, in this case, I'd be going for the daily time frame because, I'm pretty sure we're not going to see another oversold on the weekly until the bear market. But, basically, if you did that, you could buy like some back here in June of 2023, just like put like a batch of money in there. Basically, just build up your cash position, cash stack with the intention of buying on these dips whenever they happen. So you can see there's 2 months in between these. So you could buy some here, buy some back over here in August. You could maybe, if that's close enough for you, January of 2024. Again, there is 4 months in between that. Then a little bit more here in June. There is a 5-month time frame in between that, and another 2 months between June and August. So you would have basically had 5 opportunities to buy over the last 14 months. Again, somebody, if they really put their mind to it, they can stack a lot of cash in between then. Another way you could go about doing this is just position trade, like I showed you guys before. There's 2 ways that I do that. Okay, I do it with support and resistance, and I do it with the EMAs. Okay, there are 2 different strategies, just so y'all know. Okay, so we're going to go over the support and resistance one first. Support, basically, pretty much what I would be looking at here is I would go up to the highest time frame and I would say, okay, I'm going to do this on the weekly. So pretty much what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at major support levels. Okay, so you got one down here, and one here. So let's say we got this big rip up to 54. I just found out about LTCN. I decided like, oh, okay, this looks like resistance turns support. So I'll buy some here. If it gets below here, I'll stop buying until it gets down to this zone. Okay. So in between here and here, I do nothing. I basically just build up cash and then wait for it to get down here. And then I buy some more. And then either as long as it sits in the zone, I buy. As soon as it gets out of the zone, I stop touching it. And then I either let it rip or drop lower. In this case, it dropped lower. So what do I do now? I do nothing in between these zones. And then I buy some more down here and so on until eventually it rips. That's one way to do it. Okay. Another way to do it that we plan on using in the long term for Ethereum and Bitcoin is basically pretty much what we would do here is we would use the EMAs. You can see the EMAs here. We basically would use a death cross as a way to get out of the position. If, again, this is based on if the market's in an uptrend, like let's say basically the price is down here below the EMAs. So we get the death cross. We buy anything under the death cross and below the EMAs. And then as soon as it rips, we stop buying. We kind of just let it rip. We don't buy anything. Just kind of sit on it for a little while, and then as soon as it sells, or as soon as it looks like it's going to come back down below the EMAs, not necessarily have a death cross, although that could be something too. What do? We cash out and we profit, and we wait for the price to either hit another major support or to kind of pull back a little bit. In this case, on Bitcoin and Ethereum, I'd be looking for probably like about a 10 to a 15% pullback. So I basically get out when it looks like it's going to top out. Or you could even do this with the RSI. The RSI is overbought here, so you can see we could have just got out here, waited for the death cross, bought back in underneath the death cross, DCA down, and then wait for the next rip and golden cross the price to get above there to cash out again, and just rinse and repeat the same strategy over and over and over throughout time. Again, of course, crypto is based on cycles, so do understand that. So anyways, those are some of those strategies to deal with the current market conditions we're seeing right now. So the gist of what I want to go over here is that we're massively oversold on the daily, okay? So LTCN, BCHG, you can look down at the RSI, you can see how massively oversold these are. HZEN, again, we haven't seen this kind of overselling in basically a long time since pretty much we started covering this content. Same thing with ETCG. Last time we saw it was June of last year. ETH oversold. FILG not quite, but getting pretty close. GBAT just barely tapping oversold. Last time we saw that was in May. GLIV, last time we saw oversold was in April. We're getting pretty close to that again. G-Link oversold. I don't even know the last time we saw oversold on this. It was basically the bear market lows all the way back here, so pretty cheap as of right now. GSOL is still probably holding out for the spot Solana ETF would be my guess. And then GXLM, well, that's not really doing much. So it did hit the white line though, which we'll go over. So I just want to point that out. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that because a lot of these are oversold, the likelihood, the more instruments that get oversold, especially simultaneously, the much higher the probability becomes that the market reverses to the upside. Okay. Again, big swing down, big swing up. That's usually how it happens. So LTCN, we're below the trend line. Again, I would have been looking to buy at this trend line, but we got below it. So there's one of two ways to look at this. Either we close above it, and then this holds a support, which again would be $10 to about $11. If it does not, then it gets down to this support, $6.50 to $8 would be the next buy zone. If you didn't really think this was going to hold and you're like, screw that, I'm not taking the risk, I'd rather just buy down here. That's totally okay. I wouldn't blame you for that, especially with the way the markets look right now. So there's that. And then above head, I can't really say that this is a resistance yet, because again, this weekly candle has not closed. So I'll just say it's kind of an interim resistance, 13 to 15. And then above that, you're looking at roughly about 25 to 27. Swing high up here at 54. And then above and beyond that, the targets are 75, 100 to 135, 3 to 400 roughly. And then 510 at the highs. And then we can talk about anything above and beyond the highs when we get to it. So assuming this thing closes at the trend line, you'd be looking at 44% or 45%, I guess, 160%, and then roughly about 414% respectively. And then the support zone down there, assuming it goes lower, 96 to 254%, all the way up to 612%. Again, it's impossible to time the bottom. It's extremely difficult to time the bottom. I don't think we've ever timed the bottom perfectly. And I did get a comment about selling all the way up here. I mean, look, guys, the reality is we told you back here when we were making videos about this that this thing was massively oversold. Okay. We even kind of double dipped here and was like, oh, okay, sure, it could go higher, right? Because we were seeing things that were telling us that maybe it could go higher. But I mean, I want to reiterate once again, the last time we saw this get this overbought on LTCN, and I'm not saying this is the all-time high for LTCN. Okay, I don't think it is. I think we're going to see that towards the end of the year. But you guys can see basically when Bitcoin topped out in November 2020, LTCN hit 510. That was the last time we saw that overbought signal on the weekly time frame. So it was just a matter of controlling our emotions and saying, okay, look, this thing is getting expensive. We're seeing that shade of green on the RSI, which says it's overbought. So maybe we should get the hell out. So that's what we did. Which, we tried to tell you guys that, hey, likely this thing might have a pullback. And to be honest, I kind of wasn't really expecting it would pull back this much. I thought maybe like a 50% pullback, but I didn't think it was going to do something like this. So you can see how incredibly cheap this is. Even from the swing high right here, it is still down from the swing high about 82%. So BCHG, once again, we're on that macro trend line. You can see it's kind of testing it with this doji, which converges with support. So again, support 530 to 590, $7 to roughly about 780 above head, and then 1040 to 1260, 18 to 20, and then all the way up at 24 up there at the highs. So I'll just measure it basically from right about the top of the zone, because again, those two areas converge, the line and the support, 35%, 120%, 251%, and 322%. Just so you guys know, there are people out there that, well, I'm sure there's people out there in crypto that likely probably just position trade. They don't DCA in, so they just look for these major zones or major signals of some kind. Like, they'll be like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy this unless it's 80% down from the swing high, or I'm not going to buy this unless the RSI is oversold on the daily time frame, or I'm not going to buy anything unless it gets into the support zone below that, or I'm not going to buy it until I get a golden cross on the EMAs on the 4-hourly time frame, which is what we do for swing trading on, well, both stocks and crypto in this case. We've only really tested it out on stocks, but at some point we will be doing this with both Bitcoin and Ethereum on the 4-hour time frame. So HZEN, big pullback here. Not really sure why, but again, we are sitting at the bottom of this wedge, which converges with support. If we get below that, you'd be looking at $1.50 to $2. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, the target is the top of the wedge, so $10.50. Okay, so I'm pretty confident this is going to close below the support, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it. We're looking at $3.80 to $4.10, $7 to about $8, and then, of course, the falling wedge target all the way up there at the top. So you'd be looking at 67%, 217%, and 315% respectively. ETCG, we're below this support, but again, we got to wait to see what happens at the close of the week, which is in 2 days. So it could come down here to 286 to 514. Again, I give that like maybe a 5% probability, very, very small probability that we go back to the bear market lows. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, there's just too many things that are massively oversold right now. I mean, massively oversold in a very hyper fast kind of sense. Like, it happened unusually fast. That's and out of nowhere. That's what you would define as a flash crash and a black swan event, something that happens faster than expected that nobody saw coming. So I'll just simply list this support down below for you guys if you want to know it. I've already stated what it is. So as of right now, 870 to 990, and then you're looking at roughly about 13 to 1580 on the resistance up there, and then $17.60 to $20 all the way up at the top. So the current price is pretty much at the bottom of support here. So you'd be looking at roughly about 87% and 141% respectively. So ETH is now an ETF. I do want to point that out. I actually still have the 200 SMA on here. Sorry about that, y'all. That was supposed to be for something else. But basically, it's in the middle of these zones. We don't really know how it's going to close as of right now. We could have some massive rip to the upside over the next couple of days. It wouldn't shock me if that happened. So it could come back up to this zone, but I'll just give you guys the zone. So 11 to 1550 at the lower zone, and the upper zone here is 23 to about 2840. The cup and handle target all the way up there at the previous bull market highs, so $46 roughly. There is some risk here, okay? So 46% to the downside. Again, I don't think it goes that low because, I mean, we're talking about getting back down to the bear market lows. I just don't see that. So there is kind of this level right here, right around 19, that seems to be kind of like a buy zone, so to speak. You can see a lot of price action right here. So I would say probably about 19, and then of course you have the levels below that. So that's what I'd be looking at. So that would be roughly about 53 to as much as 147% move. So PhilG, I thought this one was going to stop at this $37 to $40 level. Apparently not. We'll just have to see how this plays out. But below that, roughly about $5 to $11. Again, there is no guarantee that it's going to go down there. Sometimes markets will do very tricky things where it'll come back below a support level, making you think it's going to go lower, and then it just zooms back straight up, or you'll have like one candle below it, and then it'll go back up to support, and then above support the following day or the following week. And then you're like, what the hell? Like, I thought this thing was going to go lower. That's usually how they get people to try to panic sell out of their positions, is they'll pull some kind of slick move like that. So basically from the support that I'm looking at, the 37 to 40, you're looking at roughly about an 1100% move here. If it gets even lower than that, which again, I would say the probability of that is almost non-existent, it's roughly about a 6,000% gain. So GBAT, we are below the support. I have to admit, this is kind of insane. I didn't even think it was going to pull back this much. The next level I'd be looking at, probably, if I'm being kind of, it's hard to say if this is generous or conservative, but kind of this little flip zone here. So you got some tops and some support. So I'd be looking at roughly about 230. Below that, 68 to $1.15, 68 cents to $1.15. Again, I don't think that's likely. Current support, until we confirm otherwise, is $4.50 to about $5. And then you have $8 to about $10 at that resistance up there. And then you're looking at 32 at the highs. Again, the other thing I want to point out here, so 114% and 593% respectively, is that we have not had an alt season. Okay, we haven't had like a real true alt season where the Bitcoin dominance falls off a cliff and altcoins moonshot. We haven't seen anything like that yet. So do keep that in mind. So from that white line, 115%, 280%, or 286%, and roughly about 1,154%. Below that, assuming it does get that low, which again, I don't think that's likely, 591%, 1,200%, and 4,100%. Again, the reason I'm going over like the worst case numbers with you guys, it's not because I believe that's going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen, okay? I just want you guys to be prepared if it does. And you know, if that's what you want to do, you want to wait till it gets to the absolute worst possible scenario, and you want to hold cash and build cash up for that particular situation, which may or may not happen. I just want to throw those numbers out there for you guys so you have them in case you need them. Okay, so GLIV currently sitting at support. You can see it was resistance for a long time, and then we flipped it. So we're looking at $11.50 to $15, and then 80 all the way up at the swing high. This one's pretty straightforward. It's basically just, as of right now, it pretty much just looks like a position trade, so 480%. G-Link, well, you got a doji candle there. That's not great. That indicates indecisions, so we'll have to see how the week ends. As of right now, it's still support because it's sitting in there, so roughly about 38 to 45. The new resistance, 65 to 85, and then all the way up at the highs up there, 220. So you're talking roughly about 106% to 440%, just so you all know. Again, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'll give it to you guys anyways, just so you can be prepared just in case. 730 to 1040 as the lowest point. GSOL, I still wouldn't touch this one, but I mean, I have to admit, I'm impressed with all the crazy flash crashes we've been seeing that this thing is held up as well as it has. I'm very impressed, but I still would not buy it unless it was down here at the support. So support is 170 to 205. Beneath that, basically about $80 to $90. Again, I don't think it's going to get back down there unless crypto is in a bear market. I just don't see that happening. So from support to the highs, 220%, and basically say from the green line, which is where I think the bouncing point could be, especially if we close the week above it at this point, roughly about 43%. GXLM. Okay, so we made it to this white line. So again, the white line is at $25. Resistance 53 to 58.50, and then all the way up there at 70. That's what we're looking at. So you're talking 134% move, and then roughly about 173% move. Excuse me. However, if it does get back down to this green zone, which again, I don't think that's likely to happen, I just want to give you the numbers. So it's roughly about $5 to $11.50. Assuming that were to happen, you'd be looking at a much greater return here. So 665% to 804%. I think crypto, in my opinion, is pretty close to bottoming out. Again, we're going to go over Bitcoin in the next video, so keep an eye out for that. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.